Hello and welcome to Kurious City. My name is Letty and I'm one of the co-founders of Kurious Arts. This is a podcast all about encouraging people to get curious about what's going on creatively across the city. I will be talking to a collection of individuals and organisations and companies that are making an impact, and it's all about trying to encourage you to get off the sofa and get out into the world. Let's have a listen to who we're talking to today. Hello and welcome to another episode of Kurious City. This week I'm talking to filmmaker and festival organiser Rob Nevit, who is the founder and co-director of Sheffield's horror film festival, Celluloid Screams. Hello Rob.
Hi.
Welcome to Kurious.
Thank you for having me.
You are welcome. So, right, this is exciting, isn't it? How and when did it all start? Celluloid Screams.
It started in round about, I think it was October 2008. I think we did a series of one-off screenings at the showroom.
Of horror films,
yeah. Because that's always been, I mean, when you said, where did it start? I wondered if we were going, where did it all start?
Yeah, I think I am saying that. So
Okay.
Did you, when did you discover this passion for horror?
I think I had an older sister who kind of introduced me to various films and stuff. I think I had a phase of being into things like Ghostbusters and Gremlins and monstery stuff.
Yeah,
really,
so
when I was a kid.
Thematically fairly dark for childhood.
Yeah, so I remember having the film Critters, which was a huge.
Ooh.
Do you know that one?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I found it extremely frightening.
It's a great film.
I'm afraid I'm a total wimp. I'm a horror wimp.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
We can work with that.
Okay.
It's fine.
Okay, good.
So yeah, I remember seeing that when I was 8, I think.
Gosh, that is quite young.
Because when it came out on video, which would have been around 87, 80, 86, 87. So I would have been around 7 or 8. And I remember it being the one that I wanted to get, and finally my mum rented it, and I was like, yes, this is the time, and it didn't disappoint.
But weren't you scared?
I don't think I was. Not of that, no.
Can you just tell people who haven't seen the film what it's about?
It was kind of unfairly pegged as a Gremlins ripoff, really, because it's basically this race of aliens called the Krites. Hence they become critters because they land in, I think it's Kansas. They crash land. They're escaped intergalactic prisoners, basically. These little, they're basically like hedgehogs.
Yes.
That can fire like poisonous spines, and they're just horrible little monsters that just
create havoc.
Yeah, create havoc, eat everything and anything.
Sounds a bit like me.
Me too, actually.
Yeah.
And yeah, they crash land in a kind of rural, small town in sort of middle America, and they're in sort of closely pursued by these two bounty hunters that can assume any appearance of, and they kind of, when they see a human, because they're basically like a kind of gooey, like green blob, really, and then they see, I think one of them sees like a pop star who's like a little bit like Sting. Presumably they couldn't get Sting because it's quite a low budget film.
Right, they tried for Sting and they got stung instead.
Yeah, that's right. So one of them takes the form of like a pop star, so everybody thinks that it's this pop star with a massive gun, but he's actually an alien bounty hunter.
It's a pretty strong concept, isn't it?
Oh, I think so, yeah.
But you didn't find it frightening?
Not at all.
And
no.
Your mum, obviously, she rented the film for you, but
yeah.
Did she have her reservations?
I think it must have been a process of attrition, of wearing down.
Yeah, gradual. I'm going to get that.
I want this. I want to see that. Can I see that? Can I see that? And obviously, I already owned Gremlins and Ghostbusters, so this was like the next step. But it was the first arguably the first sort of proper-ish horror film that I saw, I think.
Have you ever watched something and thought, I'm not going to be able to sleep now, or that is truly terrifying? Has anything ever really affected you? Or have you always been able to go, that's just a film?
I think it does happen from time to time. I remember seeing the Blair Witch Project when that first came out.
Yeah.
And I remember walking home because they had it. I think they had it at the showroom a week earlier than the multiplexes were allowed to have it, because they were still trying to keep up this facade of it being like a real found film.
Okay, yes, of course. I'd forgotten that about it.
Yeah.
It's a crucial factor, though, isn't it? Yeah.
So we saw it, and obviously we knew that it wasn't real. But then I remember walking home and feeling a bit like, it's dark and there's woods, and it, even though we're in a green city, which doesn't help with that, really.
No.
So there was that one. Weirdly, a good anecdote of this. That summer, a friend of mine was doing Camp America, because it came out here, I think, in the October, and it came out in the States in like June.
Yeah.
And my friend was doing Camp America that summer because it was like our first year of uni, I think. And so she went doing that for the whole summer, and a group of them went, we'll go to the cinema tonight. What should we see? Oh, there's this horror film called The Blair Witch Project. They knew nothing about it because it didn't have that hype that had built up over the months before it came here. And then she had to go and sleep in the woods in an open-ended tent. So
I mean, that is a schoolboy error, isn't it?
A little bit, yeah.
Terrified. I bet she didn't sleep for months, the whole summer.
Yeah, I think. Well, she was kind of arguably as big a horror fan as me,
right?
Because I remember us doing a joint presentation on The Exorcist when we were at university, and that, yeah.
You've got to talk more about that. How does that work? So what did you do at university?
So I came to uni in Sheffield in '98 to do History of Art Design in Film, was the course that I did at Salter Lane.
Okay.
Which is no longer there, sadly.
Yeah, what a shame.
Yeah. So I came to do that, and soon realised I don't even think I'd got a grasp that film could be something that I could do. It's weird.
You just thought you were always going to be a watcher.
I think so, yeah. And so I soon realised when I got onto that course, I was like, as much as I have an affinity for like art history and design history, film is the thing that I'm into. So I kind of soon tailored the course a little bit as much as I could to choose units that would be like
the film side of things,
film related, yeah. To the degree where at the end, I think in the third year, they said if you choose one more unit that deviates any further outside of your degree, then you'll just get a general degree. So
really?
It's like, yeah, maybe I won't do that then. I'll just go to the screenings of the Hammer films instead and just, not do the units.
Gosh.
So yeah, I did that.
And is that why you got into filmmaking? Yeah.
Not really. It was all theory at that point.
Right. Okay. So what was the catalyst?
I think after I graduated my degree, I went and I was working at the Odeon cinema at the time, and I kind of managed to find my way into doing some local marketing kind of, and ended up working as a kind of promotions like coordinator for like local marketing for films that were coming through. And I kind of, through working with like friends there, I kind of just got wind that maybe there's courses that I could do. And then so I had like 2 years out of education, and then applied to do the masters back at Hallam, which was all practical. And that's kind of where it came from, really. So I kind of ended up just making something to show them that I had some idea of what I wanted to do, and it kind of went from there, really.
I mean, it is really interesting when you think about how accessible essentially filmmaking is nowadays because of the iPhone and the way that anyone could legitimately make a little film of something, even if it's just capturing an event or whatever, and sticking it up online. Whereas when we were growing up, we didn't have that.
No, I think it's been interesting to see that progression.
Has it had a big impact on the industry from your perspective, would you say?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, there's just a wealth of content out there now, and that poses its own challenges because I think the accessibility is, like you say, has kind of improved and become pretty democratized, really. So anyone can,
impact does it have on the quality, and how do you curate that content? Yeah,
I mean, for me personally, I think it's still it's the concept and the script really that still counts.
Yeah.
You know, even if it's whether it's shot on an iPhone or whether it's shot on 35mm, you know, it's
if there's no plot and you don't care about the characters, then what's the point?
that's exactly it.
Yeah. So you're a freelancer in videography and video editing.
Yes, that's right.
As well as running, co-directing Celluloid Screams.
That's right. Yeah.
And how long have you done that for? Do you enjoy that side of work, or is it kind of bread and butter income?
I do enjoy it. I think I always would prefer it to be slightly more creative than it is sometimes, but I think that's okay. But then through the entire time I've been running the horror festival, I've always worked full time at the same time as it.
Gosh.
So
when do you ever sleep?
I'm very tired.
Yes, you will be.
Yeah.
Because you're also a parent to some humans and some cats.
Yeah, I put human/cat.
Yeah,
I didn't want you to think it was like Island of Dr. Moreau situation, you know, some kind of hybrid. No, they are two separate things.
Fine.
Yeah.
Okay, good. That is reassuring.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a tricky balance a lot of the time, because running a festival is kind of it's
a full-time thing, and you have to work 12 months how long is the planning? Pretty much,
yeah. I mean, we opened for the 2020 edition, we opened film submissions and started to that's when we kind of start
to collate the content.
Yeah, and that started mid-December.
Gosh.
So it's kind of, we have about a month where we go, right, let's not do anything for a bit. I mean, that never stops.
Sound of music.
We always think about horror. That never stops.
Yeah.
But
okay. Good.
The work, we have to go. Let's just have a breather for a little bit.
Yeah. So for those who haven't been to the Celluloid Screams, just talk us through what it is and how it works and what happens there. So what can people expect?
Okay. So as we've said, Celluloid Screams is Sheffield's horror film festival. It takes place at the Showroom Cinema, and it's now 3.5 days of the best new horror films that you may not have seen or heard of yet. So there's the films that we showed back in October, a few of them are now coming out in February, March. So it's all the new films are previews. So it's kind of like the first place, certainly locally, that you're going to see a lot of this stuff.
Gosh, that's really exciting, isn't it? How do you get hold of that content? Or is it a secret?
No, it's not. It's not a secret. We have really good relationships with distributors and sales agents from all over the world, really, and we kind of, it's a mixture of kind of curation in that way. So we're reaching out to companies and trying to find the best, most interesting, most vibrant stuff, and also we have the submission process, which is filmmakers and producers sending their films to us as well.
Okay. And how many submissions altogether approximately do you get, do you reckon?
I think last year, it's not huge amounts, because I know I've done work for some other festivals as well, and their numbers are crazy. Like, we're not like Sundance Film Festival level of submissions, but yet that's true. Yeah. So in the sort of 300 to 400 mark, I would say, for short films and features.
And who is the curating panel? Do you watch all of those films?
We do, yeah. There's three of us who are in the programming team. That's myself. There's Polly, who is the co-director, and Lucy, who is my partner, and also...
I was going to ask about Lucy, who is cited as one of your big inspirations.
Yeah.
And I was going to ask if she was involved, and I thought she must be, because it sounds like you are two peas in a pod across the board.
I think so, yeah.
Even in terms of birthdays.
Very much so, yeah. We share the 20th of August as our birthday.
Oh.
Which is...
so really, that's two of my best friends also share your birthday.
Excellent. The best
Abby
people.
And Laura. Yeah.
So yeah, it's we've been together 4 years now. So
you and Lucy.
Yeah.
Where did you meet doing horror?
No, we met actually when we were both working at Sheffield Live TV.
Okay. Oh right.
I was the production manager there, and she was the administrator who was kind of working in the office, and we kind of got to know each other through that, really. So.
Yeah. And you said, come and do this great festival.
Yeah. I mean, I think in a way she she obviously does have a choice, but she doesn't have a choice.
Sort of doesn't.
Yeah, because it's happening in her house, whether she likes it or not, really. So, but no.
Luckily, she's on board with it. So it's working okay.
Definitely, yeah.
Do you feel like what year is it in now? Did you say
this will be the 12th?
The 12th year, and do you feel like every year you have to outdo yourself from the year before and put on a new event or get someone even greater than John Landis? Do you put that kind of pressure on yourself to deliver every year?
I think I probably do. I think I probably shouldn't, because I mean, last year was a strange one for us, really. 2019, we didn't, through various circumstances, we had some special guests locked in, with mostly people connected to some of the films that we were showing.
Yeah.
And through a series of kind of misfortunes, then people having to go and work elsewhere and stuff, the guest kind of quota just kind of disappeared. So we were like, that's
tough.
It's annoying, yeah. And
had you sort of advertised it, and was it set in stone in your eyes? You kind of that's
pretty much, yeah. Or there was ones where we were kind of like, this is 99% there, and we've announced the films, but we can, a couple of weeks down the line, we can go, and joining us for this film, we'll have these people.
Q&A and yeah.
So that was an element that didn't quite come together for us last year. So it was kind of always there in my head. It's like, it's not, something's missing there. Yeah. And we kind of asked around a little bit, some of our regulars, and literally no one was that fussed. They were like, it's as good as it ever is.
We've had a lovely time.
Yeah. They're like, the film program is probably my favorite of all of them. And we've got people who've been for the whole 12 years.
Really?
And yeah, so I think there is a risk of, because you're so close to it, that you're like, why are we not scaling those heights and getting bigger and bigger and bigger every time?
Yeah. It's like having your own, I've never run a festival, but I imagine it's a bit like, having a birthday party where you just can't enjoy yourself because you're so worried about, is everyone else having a nice time? Has everyone got enough cake? Is Auntie Julia speaking to anyone? All of that kind of like, is everyone else okay? Is this going well? And you can't actually really enjoy it. Or do you find that there are moments where you can go, wow, look at what's happening and look at what we've achieved?
Yeah, I think there are definitely moments like that. And I think it's definitely the first thing you said as well, that you are constantly going, why is that thing not 3 centimeters to the right?
Yeah.
It's that level of
minutiae.
Yeah, that you sort of want everything to be right. I mean, for me, the ideal model for guest attendance, and kind of what we kind of got to the bottom of when we were asking people, is that it's a sense of spectacle that when obviously we didn't have those guests, it just lacked that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So, but for me, the model that we were always trying to get to is 2014. We had Brian Usner, who was the producer of Reanimator and directed a bunch of movies. He came over, so we had him, and we also had some guys from they're a filmmaking collective from Canada called Astron 6. I don't know if you know those guys.
I don't, but Joe, our producer, is nodding.
Yeah.
Very, very enthusiastic. He's the film buff here.
So that was a really good, for me, that's the ideal, because it's a good combination of, you've got a kind of classic guest that most people know, have seen his films, and you get all the stories, and you get all the sort of the war stories and stuff of making those films, and you have brand new people who are kind of on the cusp of becoming big themselves. So that's a nice
combination
balance
of existing and emerging talent.
Yeah. So that's I've always kind of considered that to be what we would want to have. But sometimes it just doesn't.
No.
It's a fairly specific thing to try and get every time.
Yeah, and you kind of have to. You can't control all those elements, can you?
No, absolutely not.
One of the understandably proudest moments of Celluloid Screams to date was managing to land John Landis.
Yeah.
Why? I mean, Why is he such a personal hero of yours?
I mean, in terms of horror, he directed An American Werewolf in London. There is no better horror comedy for me.
Okay.
I think it's incredible. And he's such a character as well. And he brings his personality is just like it just comes through in everything that he does. So.
I was going to say, after you'd met him, did you feel like you could see him even like coming through the films when you watched them again?
I think so, yeah.
Like, oh, that's so John.
Yeah, that's right. That's it. So yeah, I mean, that was an interesting one because it started off probably about sort of 4 or 5 years prior to it actually happening. That John's wife Deborah was doing a talk because she's a costume designer. She worked on a lot of his films, so everything through Blues Brothers, Coming to America, American Werewolf. She's done all the costume design is her, and she had I think it was at the V&A. She had an exhibition that she'd curated, and she came to Sheffield Hallam to do a talk, and somebody just messaged me. It's like,
did you know?
I think John might be with her, like, for this. And he was just there in the audience, shouting out, making a nuisance of himself.
That's what you want from a partner, isn't it? Really, really supportive.
That's it, yeah. Making it about themselves.
Yeah.
And so we kind of got tickets to that, went along, and about 10 minutes before it was due to finish, the fire alarm goes off.
Oh, God.
So everybody kind of ushered out the bottom of the auditorium onto Howard Street outside the city campus. So we stood there. It's freezing because I think it was like February. And John Landis is stood there just chatting. And I'd prepared like an invitation letter to say, come to our festival. This is this is last year's program. I think the year before we showed a film that he'd like exec produced as well. Okay. So it's like
good in.
a little bit of an in. And we just were talking outside. I gave him this and he gave me his card and he was like, let's see. Had that fire alarm not happened, they would have been whisked off through a different exit. That would never have.
It's fate stepping in, isn't it?
I think so, yeah. So then we kind of stayed in touch via email. And over time, it kind of came to, right, okay, this is the year. And he was like, yep, it sounds good. We'll commit to that. And then before we announced, luckily, he emailed me and said, I've got to be in Los Angeles on that weekend. And it's like, right, okay. He says, but I'm going to be in London the week before. So if that's any use to you, I could come up. Cover the train. I'll come up. We'll do an in conversation. It's not going to be in the festival, but if it's any use to you, and I'm thinking, if it's any use,
it's quite helpful.
Yeah,
yes,
it's
John.
like you.
All right.
Yeah, it's like, tell you what. Yeah, that sounds good.
That sounds like a good happy medium.
Yeah. So
it was you interviewing him.
It wasn't me actually. I kind of delegated this one. I've done this a couple of times where I've kind of got someone else to do it.
Do you regret that, or are you pleased with that decision?
I'm kind of pleased with that decision. Firstly, because he kind of made the whole thing about me a little bit, because he was like going, the reason this has happened, and he told the whole story of how we'd met outside the.
Oh, lovely!
It's just like, this is good, isn't it? So he told that whole story, and he saw it as I'm here to promote the festival that's happening next week, and he kind of approached it like that.
And do you think it worked?
I think so, yeah. Because I mean, it was a full like 450 people watching, so I think it really did work. And also, the reason I kind of delegated that a little bit was that I can sit back and enjoy it as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because otherwise it's just slightly too much pressure, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So the kind of final note on that story really is that I had the Paul Davis's American Werewolf in London making of book. And I was like, okay, right, John, will you sign it? So he was like, and I got it home and I looked at it and it said, to Rob, see, I told you I'd show up, John Landis, and the date. And it's like, oh, that's awesome.
I've got goosebumps. That is awesome. No one's really going to top that, are they? Or are they? Who's next on you?
weirdly, somebody that I'm hoping to try and snag, and it's somebody that I've been in touch with before, and again, it's schedules and it's that persistence of trying and trying again, is Joe Dante.
Right.
Who's coming to Sheffield HorrorCon in May.
Right. Everyone needs to go there with some signs and picket the event.
Yeah, I think
Say, come back in October.
So I'm hoping that I might be able to kind of grab him. It might even be that because for the festival, we go to Cannes every year programming, and it falls on the same time. So I'm like, I'm going to have to come back early, I think, in order to do this.
You're going to have to John Landis him, aren't you?
I think so, yeah. I'm going to, yeah.
You're going to pull a John.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to talk a little bit about your relationship to the city. So am I right in thinking you came here to go to university and then stayed?
That's right. Yeah, like
many people do, because it's so bloody great.
Yeah.
And again, like lots of people that I talk to on this podcast, they cite the people as one of the biggest perks of the city, I suppose, and I would agree with that. You aside, Joe. Joking. The one thing you say that you might change is to shout more about what we do as creatives in the city. I 100% agree with that, and that's what Kurious City is all about. But how do you think, like, how do we do that as a city? Like, what does that involve? How do we shout more about what we do creatively?
I'm not really sure, because I think it shouldn't be about comparing cities with other cities, I think, because sometimes, but having said that, you think of somewhere like Manchester or Leeds to some extent, and a lot of other cities who are really good at having that sense of kind of pride and sort of being very, it's not about boasting or being kind of arrogant about it, but it's about going, well, we do this and it's great.
Yeah, it's just about being proud of it, isn't
it? I think so, yeah. As for how we do that, I'm not really sure, because I think Sheffield is kind of intrinsically reserved a little bit.
Yeah, it's that kind of that is sort of like humble. I suppose it's about being humble and not wanting to show off. But I think there is a balance that we can find, that we're showcasing and not showing off. But actually, we should show off. We've got loads to show off about.
Oh yeah, I would agree with that, and it's something that I really think, particularly with Celluloid Screams, is that we're kind of known internationally. You know, we've got filmmakers and just people who come in from abroad to specifically to the festival.
See, that's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. And
we need more recognition of that, I think. And it's amazing that you've kind of made that happen, and you're doing something amazing for the city, but that is a complete passion project. And that must be, I mean, great, but also really, really inspiring to think that you're making a living, making a life out of something that is so hugely important to you.
It's really good. And the thing that I commented on, somebody on Facebook actually was had posted a thing, a guy who's like a genre journalist in the States, and he posted a thing saying, what was the one word that you would use to describe a genre festival? And my response was community.
Yeah.
Because I think that's it. And we have created a community of horror fans, and that's the thing that I think I enjoy the most about it. You know, it's great that being able to spend time with your heroes is brilliant, but I think bringing people together into a room to share something like that that's what it's about, really. Yeah.
Would you, I mean, can we have more horror events throughout the year? Does it all have to be in one lovely 3.5 day long celebration? But it'd be great to have a bit more horror around, she says nervously.
I absolutely agree, and it's something that we are looking at. I think having more events like year round would be great for us, because I think we've had these discussions in the team as well of like, because the way we normally do it is we'll announce the full program for the festival usually around the second week of September. So but that only gives us kind of about 6 weeks of time to sell it to the city and to sell it to and we're very fortunate that we've got a hardcore kind of audience that will be on it straight away, and it's grown really organically over that time, that we haven't had to pay for like thousands of fake Facebook likes or any of that kind of stuff. It's literally
such an achievement in this climate of sort of fake marketing, I suppose.
Yeah, and it's something that I've seen other festivals do it, and you can see through it straight away. It's ridiculous, but
lack of authenticity.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's something that's at the heart of it, really, is we always want there to be an integrity at the center of the festival as an organization, and that I think I may have said it in the questionnaire, that the audience is at the heart of what we do. It always has been, because I kind of got into this partly by going to other film festivals with my own films and seeing what worked maybe and what didn't, and I knew that if I was sat at another festival and I was like, why have they bothered with this film? This is, you can tell when something isn't done for the right reasons.
Yes. And actually you do some very nice shout outs to other creative organisations who are doing it the right way. Cinema for All, Now Then, Sensoria, Spirit of Independence Film Festival, Callum Island Film Club. I didn't actually know about them.
They're quite new.
Okay, so what makes them great?
I think, to be honest, anyone that's kind of getting out there and doing screenings in, not necessarily in a traditional setting, but that is doing something that they're like, I'm really passionate about this, and I want it to be seen. It may be films that you've already seen, it may not, and that's the hard thing, I think, particularly for get people starting things like that up, is that
so many hoops to jump through, aren't there?
That's true. And also reaching that audience with something that's not immediately like recognizable. I think the kind of classic screening sort of series thing that is, there's a lot of that goes on, but I think sometimes it tends to fall back on, it's the Goonies, or it's Grease, or it's Dirty Dancing, and those films are fine, but they're not.
It's not really creating the next generation of film watchers per se. It's not particularly innovative or mind-opening.
No, I think that's the thing, and I think when you're trying to do that, and that's one of the hardest things I think with running a festival as well, is particularly when you're dealing with brand new films. They are films. It helps when you've got Nicolas Cage in it. I will say that.
Yes.
Because people, that it's the universal language of Nicolas Cage that is a selling point to people. So, like when we screened Mandy, for example, that was sold out straight away.
Just done.
Yeah.
Bish bash bosh.
Yeah, that's it. But it is tricky, and the best way I've heard it described is from a festival programmer from a festival that I went to in Montreal, which is called Fantasia, which is the best festival I've ever been to. Amazing.
Right.
And the guy a guy called Mitch Davis, who's the programmer for one of the programmers for Fantasia, described it as you have to be like a carnival barker, which I really love that as an analogy. It's like that kind of sideshow step that right
sort of
up.
roll up.
Yeah, it's like that's your role as a programmer. You need to be shouting from the rooftops like a carnival barker. Was the thing that he said.
I love that.
Yeah, me too. And
also, I love that term, carnival barker. Yeah,
I've heard it a few times, but I've been listening to quite a few kind of US like horror podcasts, and that's
a term.
That is a term apparently coming from like traveling circuses and carnivals and stuff.
I'm going to try and incorporate it into my daily chat.
Yeah.
Okay, Rob, thank you so much for talking to me today.
Thank you.
Can you just let people know where they can find out more about Celluloid Screams and indeed you?
So we have our website, which is www.celluloidscreams.co.uk. We're at Celluloid Screams on Facebook and Instagram, and we're at Chef Horrorfest from a phase when I was going for, should we just use Chef Horrorfest to keep it simple? We're at Chef Horrorfest on Twitter as well.
Brilliant. Well, I can't wait. I'll see you in October. Good luck with the programming, and thank you for chatting.
Thank you very much.
A Kurious Arts production.